So today is a very tragic day. It is the disappearance day of our beloved Sripad Bhaktivedanta Tirtha Maharaj. He left his body today, and it's very painful for us who knew him. We're fortunate to be able to travel with him, serve him, receive his association. This is especially difficult for me because he was like a family member, a very close family member. I've known him since 1998. I think that's when this photo was taken. But since 1998, I've been with Tirtha Maharaj. I got to travel with him. Gurudev sent me directly to preach in the villages of Bengal with Tirtha Maharaj. And he's very elevated, wonderful, beautiful Vaishnav. I had a senior Prabhupada disciple call me and give me the news of the departure of Sripad Tirtha Maharaj. And they told me that since you knew him well, you have to do a webcast. You have to let the devotees know who he was, what he did, what is our relationship with him, so that his memories are not lost, and so that we can also, on his disappearance day, there's extra special blessings, be able to get his blessings and be able to create loving relationship. So in order, I guess, to share that relationship and how to advance in bhakti and who he was, I'm doing this webcast, even though it is very difficult for me because, like I said, he's a close family member. So a bit of history on Sripad Tirtha Maharaj. He was one of the senior most followers and disciples of our Srila Gurudev. When I say that he was 12 years old when he moved into the ashram, when he came and became under Srila Gurudev's guidance, he was like Srila Gurudev's son. When he was 12 years old, he moved into the ashram. At 12, he was Srila Gurudev's direct servant. Sorry, my Facebook is acting up. He joined the mat. He came to the temple serving Srila Gurudev at the age of 12. And this was about 10 to 15 years before other great exalted Vaishnavas like Sripad Madhav Maharaj, who was later the servant of our Srila Gurudev, or like Sripad Bon Maharaj came. Him and Premananda Prabhu were a generation, a decade and a half before that. He was the personal servant of Srila Gurudev. He used to cook for Srila Gurudev. He used to take care of Srila Gurudev. This was years before Srila Gurudev came to the West. This was years before there was even big preaching in India. This is when Srila Gurudev was in, how do you say, these pictures are not from then because we don't have pictures from back then. This was back in the time when Keshivji Gaudiya Math was very poor. I remember Sripad Tirtha Maharaj explaining that they did not even have running water in the mat, and he used to go and pick buckets up from a well outside of the temple and carry them all the way up the stairs to be able to serve in Keshivji Gaudiya Math, to cook for Srila Gurudev, to cook for the Vaishnavas. He came from a village of Bengal, a very poor village of Bengal, and he said that when I came, my intelligence was not very strong. I wasn't very smart, and Srila Gurudev said, everyone, all my disciples, must learn slokas, must learn verses. So Srila Gurudev, anyone who he mentored, he taught slokas and verses. He taught me many. I have, if you message me, I can give you the Bhagavad Gita sloka Srila Gurudev ticked in my Gita for memorizing. So I remember Sripad Tirtha Maharaj, many times he was saying how when I first came to the mat, I was not very intelligent and I wasn't able to memorize verses. But I did seva and seva and seva. I remember my Srila Gurudev glorifying Sripad Tirtha Maharaj on many occasions. Srila Gurudev said he does not know what the meaning of Vishram is. What the meaning Vishram means to take rest, means to rest. He said Tirtha Maharaj doesn't even know what the meaning of that is. I remember he was serving in these pictures. I just randomly got these nice pictures of Srila Gurudev and Tirtha Maharaj. But I remember Sripad Tirtha Maharaj serving, and Srila Gurudev sitting there, and he's giving class. And then he says, "Oh, Tirtha Maharaj, come and speak class in Mathura." And then Tirtha Maharaj, he's in the kitchen. He used to take his uttariya like this and put it like a cape, and he would be cooking like this, and he's all sweating, little chubby like this, and all the devotees are sitting there during Harikatha and class, and Sripad Tirtha Maharaj comes out and he's completely sweating, and there's smoke from cooking with the wood fire, and Gurudev's speak on Ras Leela. And then Sripad Tirtha Maharaj coming, and he takes the mic and he's adjusting his clothes at the same time and standing in front of everyone and giving the most beautiful Harikatha you have ever heard in Bengali and in Hindi in front of Srila Gurudev. Gurudev being so happy. I remember Tirtha Maharaj serving day and night, serving. One time I had I would always create relationships with Vaishnavas by massaging and serving. So I would massage Gurudev as much as I could every day, twice a day, and I would massage Tirtha Maharaj, Maharaj, Bon Maharaj like this. And I remember one time, I was young brahmachari when I came to Gurudev, maybe 16 years old. So I went to massage Tirtha Maharaj, who was senior Vaishnav, and you could tell he was completely exhausted. He was lying down like this, and he was like half falling asleep out in Mathura, like in front of everyone, basically, like just basically in the hallway there. It's like a normal thing in India. And he was like falling asleep, and I was massaging, and then he said, "Do you have any questions?" And I was like, "Maharaj, just like take some rest, do Vishram, take some rest." He's like, no, you're massaging me, I have to give you something in return. Any questions on Siddhanta? And then he started speaking Harikatha as he was dozing off and falling asleep like this. I remember also in Rup Sanatan Gaudiya Mat, during Julan Yatra, which is time coming up very soon, the summertime, Srila Gurudev would do festival. We'll talk about this in future classes. And then being on the roof with our now Sridhar Maharaj, who used to be Rasananda Prabhu. I think Bon Maharaj was there, Tirtha Maharaj was there. And then I was massaging Tirtha Maharaj. And then he says, "This is not how to do it." And then he grabbed me, and I was a young boy at this time, right? He grabbed me and he held me down physically. He said, "This is how you massage." And he started massaging my feet. And I was like, "Maharaj, what are you doing?" I was freaking out. He's like, "No, this is how you massage." And he was showing me, he was doing like this strong, tough massage. And it was actually really good, right? And he said, that's how you do it. And he was like training how to serve like this. Sripad Tirtha Maharaj always serving in every respect, always serving, non-stop serving. He, like I said, he would be cooking, he would be speaking Harikatha, and I actually went off on a tangent, but the story that Tirtha Maharaj, I heard him explain many times, was as when he was a young brahmachari in the mat before most of the other devotees have ever came, most of the senior Vaishnavas that we know even knew about the mat, he was carrying water up the stairs in Mathura, up to do all the cooking for Srila Gurudev. And then he said he got some special blessing from Srila Gurudev that every bucket of water that he carried up the stairs, he would memorize one sloka. So in a day he would remember 5, 6, 7, 8 different slokas and memorize all these verses and know all of these things. So not only did he engage his body in physical service, in cooking, in cleaning, and sweeping. I've seen him clean toilets, I've seen him do everything, but then also he was one of the most educated and the most scholarly Vaishnavas that Srila Gurudev has trained. I remember going to Sripad Bon Maharaj, our famous Sripad Bon Maharaj now. Back in the day, this may be 2002, 2003, like this, and I asked him a question about Jaiva Dharma, something about Jiva Tattva, and he said, "I don't know, let's go to Panditji and ask." And I was like, "Who's Panditji?" And he was like, "Tirtha Maharaj is Panditji. He knows so much, he always knows the answers to all questions." So Bon Maharaj, he took me from his room, we walked across and went to Sripad Tirtha Maharaj, and then Bon Maharaj asked the question, and Tirtha Maharaj explained it both to us, and he was like, "You see," and this is, Bon Maharaj at this time was not new, he was being in the temple for decades and decades and decades, he was preaching around the world preacher, but Tirtha Maharaj always, by blessings of Gurudev, even though he started off with, like in his words, not very intelligent, he memorized all the verses, he knew everything very nicely. I'll explain later in the end one story, because I do have a slide for it, but I remember one time, I guess I'll tell you the story now, was I was with Srila Gurudev in the villages of Bengal, not with Srila Gurudev, with Sripad Tirtha Maharaj in the villages of Bengal. Srila Gurudev, he ordered me to go in the villages of Bengal and preach, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And then I told him about one katha that I read in the Brahma Samhita book by Srila Gurudev, this how do you say, one beautiful story. He was explaining, Srila Gurudev in the book was explaining how when Krishna goes out into the forests, there's a huge festival, and all the trees and creepers which are conscious and which are alive, they begin, doing like a flashlight slideshow festival for Srila Gurudev, for Sri Krishna's entering into the forest. So they start flashing different colors, and they have so much mood inside of their hearts. So the trees, they begin to extend their branches down and give the fruits to Krishna to be able to take while he's walking in the forest. And then they have so much love of bhav inside of their heart, they begin to cry. And the trees crying for Sri Krishna is honey dripping from the trees, these beehives and honey dripping from the trees. So I remember telling Sripad Tirtha Maharaj that, wow, what Srila Gurudev wrote in this book. And then he had this huge smile on his face, and he said, "I wrote this." When we were with Srila Tirtha Maharaj, you would see I would wake up sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 1 o'clock in the morning when we were traveling with him, and he would be there in the villages of Bengal, no electricity, with a candle light. They have these candles like in a glass, like they used to have in the olden days. They still use that in Bengal, where Tirtha Maharaj teaches. He would be sitting there and he would be writing these books. He would be writing in Hindi and have all these papers. And he would be doing that while everyone was asleep, like 2 o'clock in the morning. This is after going to bed at like 11, after not taking a nap in the day, after a constant physical seva all day, and he would be writing. And what he used to do is he used to write the books. He used to read the commentaries like Brahma Samhita, Ras Panchadhyay, many other books that have Srila Gurudev's name on it. They were written by Sripad Tirtha Maharaja, or also taken from the commentaries like this, and also so much was put there. And Gurudev would proofread it, go over, adjust a few things, and then they would be printed with Srila Gurudev's name on it. But a lot of the books that we have were actually written by Sripad Tirtha Maharaj. But Gurudev says, because he was so close to Srila Gurudev, Gurudev had what he called Sangastra Parshadam. Gurudev had his astra, his weapons, and his angas, his limbs. So in a sense, people like Sripad Bon Maharaj, Sripad Madhav Maharaj, Sripad Tirtha Maharaj, Premananda Prabhu, the many sannyasis, these were the limbs, the extensions of Srila Gurudev. So if they did it, it was the same as Srila Gurudev did it. And the proof of that is that Srila Gurudev would sign his name on what they wrote, on what Sripad Tirtha Maharaja would write in the villages, like this. So very educated, very scholar, so much beautiful Harikatha coming from Sripad Tirtha Maharaj. But not only that, also in our Navadvip Parikram, in our Rajamandal Parikram, always with his danda like this, leading the way, taking the whole Parikram of thousands of people on the order, under the guidance of Srila Gurudev, Sripad Tirtha Maharaj always leading everything so much. So like we see on these pictures all the time, there's, now this is in the beginning of Parikram, we have here, which is Sankalpas, where you take the water and you do the prayers and then you offer, and everyone's taking their vow of how they're going to do in Parikram and what they want to get from the Parikram, Krishna Bhakti, all the time. And all the time, you see Sripad Tirtha Maharaj, he's the one who has the microphone, he's leading everyone through the prayers, he's saying, pray like this, hold flowers like this, offer like this, Srila Gurudev doing. All the Vaishnavas, everyone, all following Sripad Tirtha Maharaj's guidance for the parikrams in the beginning, for the abhisheks of I don't have a picture, but if you go Navadvip Gaurpurnima Abhishek, Janmastami Abhishek in Vrindavan, like Mathura, with Srila Gurudev, Tirtha Maharaj always leading all the abhisheks like this, everything. So serving, like he's always like Anantadev. You know how Anantadev or Baladev Prabhu, they serves in every respect. We'll speak this katha on Baladev Purnima coming up. But how do you say, how Baladev Prabhu makes the umbrella, he makes the dam, how he is the seat, how he's also Krishna's brother, and how he serves as an Angamanjari in every rasa, in every mood, always serving. If there's anyone of all of Gurudev's Vaishnavas are like beautiful stars following Srila Gurudev, but if there's anyone that exemplifies this serving in every dimension, it's our Sripad Bhaktivedanta Tirtha Maharaj. He, like I said, he would cook, he would write the books, he would lead the parikram, he would speak Harikatha on the parikram, he would wash the pots. I've seen him washing the pots, he would sweep the floor, he would do everything, he would lead all the ceremonies like this. This is Anukut festival. Srila Gurudev, I was still, this is maybe 2099, 2008, like this. Sripad Tirtha Maharaj is the one organizing all the candles, leading the whole parikram to make sure everything is going smoothly, everything is going beautifully. On Anukut festival, also the day of offering, how do you say, Giriraj Anukut, not only is he speaking the Harikatha, not only is he leading the Abhishek for bathing like this, not only is he making sure, like us as brahmacharis, like the kirtan goes on. I remember he used to have his danda, and he would come and say, Hat, do kirtan! Why not doing kirtan? He would take danda and start hitting us, but with so much love. Right? So much love. He would be hitting us because now is the time for kirtan to start. Now is the time for parikram. Get the mridanga, get the kartals, always on top of everything, not taking one drop of rest. So in this Anukut festival, maybe devotees don't know, Tirtha Maharaj not doing all of these things in the front, but also in the back. He would stay up all night. I've seen every year, not 1-2 times. Every year he would sit down and he would be frying and cooking all night for Giriraj Anukut and doing everything in the day. Like we have, like, you know, those packages, maybe you don't know, but Vrinda Didi and the Vaishnavas, they used to take the Anukut Mahaprasadam and put it into packages for devotees to take back to their countries, and they would distribute it after the dry things. Most of those dry things were made by Sripad Tirtha Maharaj, because he would sit there and he would be frying the samosas, frying the pakoras, frying everything, cooking, sweating like this. I remember one time, like sometimes my health has been a little not so strong, and I was like, oh, I couldn't do something because of health, some seva. And then Tirtha Maharaj, and I remember Tirtha Maharaj and Premananda Prabhu, they were talking about me. They said, this boy, he's very weak, not seva. Doesn't he know if he just does seva, then everything will be taken care of? Oh, he has a cold, right? When I go in the kitchen and I'm cooking and it's sweating like this, then all the cold, all the mucus, everything coming out, and everything completely healed. That's how I deal with my health like this. Sripad Tirtha Maharaj, I remember his health also very, very fragile. He'd be going in the villages, but nothing, never caring about himself, always serving. He's been more in the trenches serving than I've seen any other Vaishnava. And I spent months and months with Sripad Tirtha Maharaj in the villages like this. Like I said, Houston temple, yagya installation, Sripad Tirtha Maharaj doing. Temple installation in Anandadam, Sripad Tirtha Maharaj doing the yagya there. We were there, other devotees were there helping, but Srila Gurudev, maybe not in the photo, I can't point properly, but Srila Gurudev sitting over there, right? But Tirtha Maharaj doing everything for this. I remember also, when I was traveling in the villages of Bengal with Sripad Tirtha Maharaj, Gurudev sent me by force. I didn't want to go, but he sent me by force. He said, you'll learn so much from him. Vaishnav Sangha, you should serve. Gurudev told me directly. We went for, this was when Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Maharaj was on this planet. If you don't know who that is, other classes will explain. Very elevated Vaishnav, god brother of Srila Gurudev, actually official guru of Bhaktivedanta Madhav Maharaj, Bhaktivedanta Van Maharaj, Bhaktivedanta Tirtha Maharaj, and many of the Vaishnavas like this, the Acharya of Gauriya Vedanta Samiti. So it was his appearance day. It was his Abirbhav, it was his birthday, right? So we went from the villages, these remote villages, most likely place in the world to be eaten by a tiger, and we went to Calcutta for the appearance day festival. And I remember Sripad Tirtha Maharaj sitting down and saying, okay, we're going to do a yagya in honor of Vyas Puja. We explained this a little bit in Vyas Purnima. And he's doing yagya, and he had no book. But every time anybody else you see doing yagya, anyone else you see doing yagya, they have book, right? They have Tirtha Maharaj doing the whole thing from memory. He's doing book like this, whole thing from memory, and then also you see he's adjusting here, he's adjusting there. When Srila Gurudev told us to learn, then we're also watching. When I say adjusting, I'll explain what that means. Is there something which is called Vaishnav Homa, where you're offering the ghee, and with the parts where you're doing swaha, and everyone's offering swaha, and you're offering swaha to different Vaishnavas, and you're offering swaha to the associates of like Lalita, Vishaka, Chankavalata, Chitta, the Chaturvyuha, and all these different great, the Mahajans, and all these different great personalities throughout history, written by Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And this is maybe 300, maybe 150 different swahas. He has the whole thing memorized, and then he's adding more Vaishnavas and more devotees that are not even in the book, but he knows even more, making even more beautiful like this. Giridhari Prabhu with Premananda Prabhu now, he's a great guru, great Vaishnav. He's also, I taught him how to do yagya, but he's also going to learn how to do from Sripad Tirtha Maharaj, and we're always taking notes on how Sripad Tirtha Maharaj is doing everything, because he was, in a sense, the Mahanta. He was the, the powerful Vaishnav. Also, my sannyasi yagya, everyone's sannyasi yagya, Tirtha Maharaj is doing. You know, he's big person. But not only is he just doing pujas, not only is he writing books, not only is he cooking, not only is he speaking most beautiful Harikatha, we sometimes take our Navadvip Dham Parikrama for granted. Many of you have gone to Navadvip Parikrama where we have 10,000 minimum devotees coming and going on Parikram, and you have these huge, sometimes like these wells that are basically wells that are so big, and they put these huge logs for cooking. The size, you can't see this room because we're all got this production thing, but the size of the pots can't even fit in this room. They're bigger. You could like, people use them as boats, like multiple people, like huge Parikram, thousands of people. Where do the people come from? And where does the food to feed the people come from? And I would say that the majority of it comes from Sripad Tirtha Maharaja's preaching. And I don't say this whimsically. I say this from first-hand experience and first-hand participation. What we don't know, what many devotees don't know in the Western world, is that preaching in Bengal villages has been going on since the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And in order for Navadvip Parikram, 3 months before Navadvip Parikram, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I believe, did this, and then also our Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj did this, and then later our Gurudev, our Vaman Maharaj would do this, would take the different devotees and divide them into different preaching groups to go into what they would call a preaching field, or a different area in the villages of Bengal to preach. So there'd be like 10, 15 brahmacharis, 5, 10 different brahmacharis. They would have one area they would cultivate. What they would do is go door to door to people, doing small little programs, sometimes 5 people, sometimes 5,000 people. You never know. And everything in between. These programs, speaking Harikatha, preaching, creating relationship with devotees, inviting them to come to Navadvip Dham Parikram. Also going door to door and begging, begging rice door to door. So sometimes big programs, sometimes small programs. But these are small little villages like this. They live in mud huts, these small little houses. like this. So our Sripad Tirtha Maharaj, he had one field that he was doing for maybe 30 years, maybe 40 years he was preaching in this village field, and about 90 to 95% of the Bengalis, there's just oceans and oceans of Bengalis in Navadvip Parikram, come from Tirtha Maharaj's field. Other sannyasis, Srila Gurudev gave me one field one time, few years I did, also preaching in the villages. And we brought maybe 200 people. Tirtha Maharaj bringing 10,000 people. 10,000! People bringing to Navadvip Dham Parikram. We bringing one little truck of rice. He's bringing like so much rice that there's more rice than what's needed for Parikram, and they're selling after to be able to take care of the temple. So Srila Gurudev, this Bengal village preaching is very difficult preaching. It's the hardest preaching. Anyone who knows, it's very difficult. When I say very difficult, according to Guinness Book of World Records, the most likely place in the world to be eaten by tigers. Objective fact. We went to those villages with Tirtha Maharaj. She's going every year for months and months preaching in these villages. No electricity, no running water. They're even cooking with pond water, which is full of all this bacteria, giving health very sick. These poor villagers, we're going and staying maybe 10, 15 people. Say, oh, you please stay in this room. And it's not even one room. It's like kind of a living room in this mud hut where there's not even enough space for devotees to be able to roll over, sleeping next to each other under these mosquito nets. Everyone in the mat, in the temple, know if you go and have to go in Bengal Prachar, it's almost like a death sentence. Like even the Bengalis who come from those villages, like, oh no, they don't want to go. But Tirtha Maharaj, so much nistha, so much firmness in practicing, in service. He's going every year, and he didn't have a big ego. Right? He was one of the, if we talk about numbers of people who have been brought to the path of bhakti, numbers of people brought to Parikram, numbers of people who have heard Harikatha, I would say Tirtha Maharaj was the biggest of our whole followers of Srila Gurudev. The biggest, largest numbers of people done by Sripad Tirtha Maharaj. He was also the most senior, more senior than most of the other new people came. I explained this before, but still so humble. I remember being in the villages of Bengal, and he's like, you share the mosquito net with me. And sleeping on the one bed where we can't even roll over, hardwood, just a shutter on top of it, and he's sleeping there, but completely detached. Then he's waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning and writing. Then after finishing writing in the morning, when we're still just getting up, he starts giving class to the local villagers, takes breakfast, and then immediately out of the door, and he leaves maybe one brahmachari with him. We're still just trying to survive after waking up, and he's already done all of these things, and he's going door to door to door to all these poor, these are people's homes. Right? These pictures, these are people homes I took from my village, not from his villages, but same thing. Go door to door and giving them an invitation. Come to Navadvip Dham Parikram. And he's saying, how much rice will you donate? And then they donate the rice and they pick up the rice and take it. Then he's taking the rice himself and carrying on huge sacks. How many times we see him doing like this, serving in every regard. Is our Sripad Tirtha Maharaj. Okay, I actually didn't upload more slides. So Sripad Tirtha Maharaj, very painful day that he's leaving. They say, what is Bhakti? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asked, what's the biggest pain in the world? And they say, Vaishnava Viraha Dukkha, the pain of separation from a Vaishnav. Everything in Bhakti is about creating relationship with Vaishnav. And the only reason why we have any chance, any hope, Vina Mahatpadara Jobhisheka, any opportunity to be able to advance in Bhakti is if we can have some small association of the Vaishnavs. And this association we have with Srila Gurudev, but also the people who Sangha Panga Sripad, people who are so near and dear to Srila Gurudev. Since 12 years old, our Sripad Tirtha Maharaj was serving Srila Gurudev. I said this before, since 12 years old, non-stop serving like this. I think if I had maybe 5 lifetimes, I still would not have the energy, the capacity, and everything to be able to serve in the way that Sripad Tirtha Maharaj does. And I'm not saying this out of to try to say some poetic thing. I'm not trying to say this because it sounds good or flower. No, I actually believe that because I've lived with him for months and months on end, and I've seen the service that he did. A team of 10 people could not keep up with him. And then you could say, oh, well, he was blessed with a lot of chi in his body. He had a lot of energy, so he's able to do. And today's the proof that that's not the case, because he wasn't an old Vaishnav. He wasn't 80 years old Vaishnav. He left in his young age. He gave his life to serve to Srila Gurudev, literally. I remember being with him in the villages before, and I'm like, he should take care of his health. He's going to die. He was eating the unhealthiest foods. But people give in service, and I take what they give, right? I'm not concerned about what I'm eating. He's giving like this, and he had diabetes like this, but still just no special diet. Srila Gurudev, when I was going in the villages of Bengal, I was like, I can't eat the Bengali food. Gurudev said, okay, here, take one brahmachari to be your cook. Tirtha Maharaj never had his own cook. He never had it. Maharaj has special diet. Bon Maharaj, special diet. Srila Gurudev, special diet. Nothing wrong with this. Right? But Sripad Tirtha Maharaj, so detached, so vairagya, no special diet, no anything concerned for the body, serving, and literally to the point where he cannot serve anymore and he's dying. Right? He's giving up his life for serving like this. He was not old like this. And some people, they have the audacity to disrespect Sripad Tirtha Maharaj. In millions of lifetimes, they have no opportunity to be able to serve like Tirtha Maharaj, to be able to have the association of Srila Gurudev, that Srila Tirtha Maharaj, even to serve in one of their dimensions, not one of the dimensions meaning either cooking or either leading parakram or either doing yagyas and ceremonies, either speaking Harikatha, either begging villages like this. Us, we cannot even compare it to even one thing, and people think, oh, he's wrong, he's bad. People doing politics like this, they'll go directly to hell. People who do this type of aparad, to Vaishnava Thakur. A Vaishnav Thakur, for sure, without a doubt. I will give my life to back up this statement. Sripad Tirtha Maharaj, one of the most elevated Vaishnavas that this planet has seen in recent history. And I say this from knowing him since 1998, for 15 years. And today is such a sad day that the world has now become useless. The world has now become empty without the association. Excuse me. This is difficult. I thought I did all my crying before. But without the association of these Vaishnavas, let's say there's no point in the world existing. If the Vaishnavas are not here to bless the planet Earth, if they're not here just to simply by their existence, we have some opportunity for bhakti. But now the world has become a complete dry desert. No, many advanced Vaishnavas are here. But if you have opportunity to go to India, to go to Parakram, to go see the Vaishnavas, to go see Sripad Premananda Prabhu, same generation, Tirtha Maharaj, serving just in the same way, do it. I tell you honestly, I've been doing my plans. I have not been to India for a few years, and I was thinking, okay, I'm making plans after, let coronavirus go by, let everything be settled, then I'll go for Parakram. And I have one of the biggest regrets in my life is not taking darshan of Sripad Tirtha Maharaj in the last few years after he's leaving. Simply little dust from his lotus feet, so great. There's one elevated Vaishnav. You might have heard of him. I don't know. His name is Kanai Prabhu. Kanai Prabhu was the god brother of our Srila Gurudev, a very elevated Vaishnav. I remember when I spoke about him many times because he left a very big impression with me. He would preach in the villages with Sripad Tirtha Maharaj. He was senior, but Tirtha Maharaj leading and him following along, many other Vaishnavas following along. And our Sripad Kanai Prabhu, I remember he would be like chanting and crying, and he would come up to me and said, you know, inside of your heart, if you chant after some time, you can look and you can see Radha and Krishna's pastimes going on inside of your heart. When you chant after some time, he said it's like watching TV. Very simple Vaishnava, very elevated. Kanai Prabhu would only use one dhoti like this, very detached, like description of Vaishnava. He wasn't big acharya, so he didn't have to wear nice clothes and speak eloquently. He just got to say things as it is. So one time he came to me and he said, you know, you chanting sometime, you'll be able to know who you are. You'll be able to realize who you are. And he said, you'll be able to see that also who Srila Gurudev is. Srila Gurudev, you're chanting and you see him in his spiritual form. He was like, this is real. And he said, you'll also see who you are, who Srila Gurudev is, and you'll see who Sripad Tirtha Maharaj is. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. This Vaishnav, god brother of our Srila Gurudev, who has been serving for 60 years, 80 years, he's been serving Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. He's been chanting 64 rounds since then, right? I lived with these Vaishnavas, right? Very elevated Vaishnav. He's telling me that he's seeing the Svaroop, the transcendental spiritual form of Sripad Tirtha Maharaj in his realization. And he had no political agenda in saying this. I know, this family, right? We know when someone's bullshitting. Excuse my language. We know when someone's doing some political thing, trying to blah, 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 all of this stuff that is plaguing the devotee world and destroying people's bhakti and leading to aparad. Kanai Prabhu had no incentive to do this and did not do. Right? He glorifying Sripad Tirtha Maharaj like this. So today, very, very sad day in remembrance of Sripad Tirtha Maharaj. And what I'm saying is, any other Vaishnav could go at any time. I used to have this fantasy, this idea that the Vaishnavas will be there for a long time. Okay, one generation was our Srila Gurudev and Shri Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj. They left, but now we have the next generation of Vaishnavas like Sripad Tirtha Maharaja, Sripad Madhav Maharaj, Sripad Maharaj, Premananda Prabhu, and many other Vaishnavas like this. So this is good. So we'll do preaching, and later we can create a nice relationship with them more. But then now he's going. We never know what Krishna's plan is. So any opportunity you have for sadhu sangha, do not waste this opportunity. Everything in life is useless. There's no point in anything other than associating with Vaishnavas. This is no point in chanting your japa. No point in going to the temple. No point in worshipping the Tirthas. Tirtha yatra parishram sakal keval manabram kikaj hatya durdesh. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, going on parikram, it's just an illusion of the mind. Why go to these distant places? Vrindavan, where the Vaishnavas are, that is Vrindavan. The reason why we go to Vrindavan, why we chant, the reason why we do any of our spiritual path practices is only to please the Vaishnavas and create relationship with the Vaishnavas. And now, this relationship, much harder to do. We can still chant, we can still pray. If you've ever made any slight offense in your mind to Sripad Tirtha Maharaja, everyone does, gossip happens, I know. Please give up these doubts. Give up these offenses of your mind. Do not do this. It will send you directly to hell. This will stop us from bhakti. Na bhave ashrudhar. As described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. I remember Gurudev explaining in Mathura, saying if we chant Krishna's name, we're supposed to cry. We're supposed to roll in the ground. In ecstatic ecstasies, our hairs are supposed to stand on end. But why? Why is it when we chant, we do not experience these things? Is it because of sinful activities? Absolutely not. Sinful activities disappear immediately when in the power of holy name. Is it because we are impure? Of course we're impure. That's why we're chanting. Is it because the name is not pure? No, the name is transcendently pure. Krishna's name is absolutely transcendently pure. But why, when we chant Hare Krishna, do we not see Krishna? Nam Nami Abed. Krishna and his name are non-different. Why do we not see the Krishna directly? Only aparadha prachur. Gurudev explaining from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because of offenses to Vaishnav. So on this day, things happen. Whatever, politics are there. But on this day, if we have any slight offense to Sripad Tirtha Maharaj, if I've ever done anything for you, if I can ever do anything for you, please get rid of these aparads from your mind. Please have no doubt. Please give respect. There's no loss to you now. Now he's left. Please beg forgiveness because he Vaishnav Thakur, and without his mercy, if making aparad to him, bhakti cannot come inside of the heart. And also, by his mercy, bhakti can come. I've had opportunity of doing some service and feeling how that is helping in bhakti. Gurudev directly putting me under his guidance to be able to learn and advance in bhakti like this. So he's serving Gurudev, Gurudev's personal servant, maybe 10 years, 15 years before Sripad Madhav Maharaj even came. It was Premananda Prabhu and Tirtha Maharaj who decided to make Madhav Maharaj Srila Gurudev's personal assistant. Such elevated Vaishnavas like this. If you go to villages of Bengal, he has tens of thousands of devotees that he's made. He's brought to Navri Parikram. Now what will happen without his presence? How will we advance in bhakti? How will Parikram go on? Krishna arranging everything, but still very, very sad day. So this day, please share this video. Other people can also remember Vaishnav Thakur. If you're in Miami area, tomorrow we're going to do a ceremony, a festival here in my place where we'll be honoring Sripad Tirtha Maharaj and doing some memories. Many devotees also here had association with him, and we must honor Vaishnavas like this. Okay, I apologize for getting so emotional and worked up in this class, but this has been very serious, very important. Vancha kalpatarubhishcha kripa sindhubhevascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. If there's any questions, class is finished, but if there's any questions, I'll stay on a few minutes, depending on where you're seeing this. I'm not sure if I get all the questions coming here. I get Prajabhat Tirtha Maharaj Ki Jai. Can you refer when Sri Guru Maharaj entrusted Srimad Bhagavatam? All the time, for many years, I explained this in the beginning of the class, was our Srila Gurudev. He wrote many books, but most of the books that Srila Gurudev wrote, he was actually editing. And people like Sripad Tirtha Maharaj wrote many of these books. So a lot of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Ras Panchadhyay, many of these other things, I remember Sripad Tirtha Maharaj said, I have to finish this. And how he found time to do this, I don't know. So I don't know the exact details of which books he did, and it's in the name of Srila Gurudev, so we keep in the name of Srila Gurudev. But much of it done by our Sripad Tirtha Maharaj, like this. Thank you so much. Thank you, devotees, for listening, allowing me to remember Sripad Tirtha Maharaj. Beautiful. Okay. Thank you. Please share this with devotees. They can watch the replay and remember the Vaishnav Thakur. Oh, also, I guess, yeah, anyway, enough said. Panchakalpatarubhasya kripasinduvevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.